A very warm welcome to the channel. Today is Monday, the 9th of September 2024. Hope you had a great weekend and looking forward to another week as we head into autumn, we head into the fall. It's going to get cold, it's going to get wet, it's going to start snowing, and it's going to be Christmas just around the corner. But here's a rant and rave over a nice little cup of coffee for today. In October this year, I had been on YouTube for around about 6 years, and I did manage to get monetized around about 2020. Just hold on a bit. I have a little bit of a cold, and occasionally I have to clear my throat, and that's why I put it on pause. And it's related to my hobby here at YouTube. You see, I put on some videos related to China. I try to do the facts. I try to gather the pictures. I try to authenticate. But why can Chinese propaganda come onto YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat? Fine. But we can't go onto Chinese social media and like WeChat or Weibo or their TikTok called Douyin or even another one called Redbook and say what we want to. And the whole thing is, the Chinese propaganda war seems to be winning. That a lot of these people who do live in China or who are very pro-China seem to get a lot of views, and you see them growing quite immensely. You would see them start at, let's say, 5,000-10,000, and now a year later they're up to 40,000. Now, this could be, and this is just rumors but no evidence, this could actually be, well, their videos go to the bot farms where these videos are actually watched on a mobile phone, for example. They do give it the thumbs up, and sometimes they put in some generic comments there, and that's going to help the algorithm grow with them. But they can say all the positive stuff about China, they can put all the lies in about China. For example, it's so easy to catch, but they seem to be quite arrogant related to let's say, for example, the absolute alleviation of poverty, when it's so simple to actually see and speak to real Chinese people and say, no, there's homeless people on the streets, but they absolutely deny it. And when you do put a video forward, of course, they're not going to respond to it. They will just go, ha, 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 I'm getting a lot of money for this and you're not getting the subscribers. So it's sometimes that you work really hard, or as a hobby, you work really hard to talk about it with the evidence, but you don't get the views. So if there are people who endeavor to listen, who are in China, for example, or people from WeChat or Tencent or even the government, is it possible that we would be allowed to, one, have a WeChat account without permission or the checking up of our status like we can do on Facebook or Twitter, without incorporating a Chinese citizen to be sort of like our guarantor? And can we post things about how awful sometimes the CCP is, that they say one thing and then they do another? The South China Sea, for example, international law says they can't, but they went ahead and did. Nothing else happens. Transparency, showing us the true figures with a company which has reliable numbers related to COVID-19. Why am I talking about this? Because so often you would see videos and they say, well, as I mentioned before, China is number one and America, is trying to catch up with the infrastructure. And they would show a beautiful picture of a park somewhere in Beijing, which is like a royal park, for example. Then they go to a drug area in Los Angeles, for example, and say, this is like what it's like in the whole of the United States. China is so good, China is so much better, and communism works and democracy doesn't. Even though they say in the Chinese constitution, they do have freedom of speech and they do have democracy, as long as it is positive speech about the country, not negative speech about the country. And democracy, well, it's democracy in a Chinese fashion. But if you go to the English dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary, Webster's Dictionary, democracy just has one meaning and one meaning only. And if you do something against the Chinese government, you will always get a reply back. And you know it's from, you could say, a communist official or a communist member. Now, there's over, I think, 100 million in China, which is just under 10%. The rest of the country, they just confined with it and just get on with it. They would be the people, and you know who they are quite simply because they would always do a personal insult. As I mentioned again before, they would call you an old man, a idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about, who's never been to China, who's never been to Asia. And they would just look at the comment. And they wouldn't even watch the video and sometimes just say clickbait without even watching the first 5 or 10 seconds. They would just deny it straight away. And you would say that is basically their job, to make sure the algorithm is positive against China and the algorithm is bad against America. This is the whole thing. YouTube is a private company. It's owned by Google. It's a private company. They do have their own rules because it is a private company, but they seem to manipulate that in a way that when it comes to a video like myself or someone who has been tinkering as a hobby but would really like to get to 100,000 subscribers, we can't do it because the algorithm doesn't work in our favor, because the algorithm at the moment works with the pro-Chinese CCP. Why? Because there's so much of it, and that's why it is working. It's always easy to spot one of these. One is a gentleman, for example, 65 years old, he's retired, and he will sit down in a room like this saying it's his own studio, whatever it is, that's okay, that's fine. And he would denounce the CCP. He would say that the African the African conference in Beijing is an absolute success, but we've sort of debunked that already with some theories. And you will see this happen so often, but they won't show any evidence. They will only do talk the talk, and the only evidence they would show would be the positive side from a Chinese newspaper like the Global Times, and the evidence from, let's say, New York Times, that you actually have to pay for online, so I don't know how they managed to do that, and show the negative and the incorrect, or what they say is the incorrect information about China. And they would do it in a very subjective way, not objective, and they only do one side of the story. Now, I'm not going to give them the luxury of naming their names, but if you go through my channel, you can pick out one or two of them. And if you go to some of my friends on YouTube, for example, Serpent ZA, Laowai86, Free China, I will put those links in the description. Another one is China Uncensored, where they do actually show you the headline, okay? But they will also show you the video of what happened in China. Now, this video is not from the media. This is from, well, yeah, it is from the media, but you could say not mainstream media. This is from social media, where people would have their camera, they would have their phone, whatever, and they would take a picture of this incident. They will post it on Weibo, which is like Twitter, and maybe they have a VPN so they can jump over the firewall and basically get to Twitter and then post it there. That I can believe more because it's video evidence, but you do have to be careful. There are some people who would say a storm in Wuhan, but the pictures would be from 2018 as an example. So what can be done about it? I don't have any set time that I make a video. I usually do 1 or 2 every day. Sometimes I don't do one in a couple of days. It is varied, related to Cambodia, to Thailand, my travels, experience in Asia, hence it's called the Asia Show. So I can cover a lot of topics under one title. When you watch one, do make sure you give it a thumbs up. give it a thumbs down if you don't like it, and I can see it from there. So if it's not doing well, there is a reason. Do leave a comment. Now, if you disagree, that's fine, but constructive criticism. Don't do a personal criticism of my blonde grey hair or my double chin, or call me short-sighted or long-sighted or a blind man. You don't know what you're talking about. Constructive. Happy to read it, and then it's not going to go into the naughty file with that. Share it with your friends. That would be great. Just talk about it with your friends when you're in the pub if you want to talk about something different rather than what's happening with the Super Bowl or football or basketball or baseball or your next door neighbor's friend's uncle's wife's cat's sister's affair with a dog. That sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. And do help me in that way, putting the algorithm towards the actual truth rather than the propaganda that you could say some of these Western people who do live in China, who are communists and love the communist way. It's very obvious that they do, and not the democratic way. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe if I want to call even Donald Trump, now I know many people of you like him, but I can say, because I do have freedom of speech, he is a useless guy. I'm not going to say that because I think he is actually a very good guy. But you can't do that in China, because that's, even though they say they have freedom of speech, but it's only freedom of speech in a positive way related to the government. There's a clause in freedom of speech. But I'm sure some people would disagree with that. So if the CCP is listening, or is Tencent listening, let me go on WeChat and let me talk freely and openly about the CCP, like you do on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, there. Don't you think that's fair? If you're complaining about unfair trading laws, well, if you have freedom of speech, why don't you let Westerners talk about them on your social platform? You complain about tariffs, about cars being imported, Chinese cars being imported into America. Well, American cars imported into China, 78% tax. I do have a actual saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I am quite a direct person, so I will ask directly. Some people would say it's a bit impolite, but everyone is an individual. So with my channel, there's about 34,000 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you are subscribed, please check that you are subscribed. Sometimes they disappear for some unknown reasons. So please do check. I do have a passion now, and I'm going to go for an ambition for this, because I've seen this happen quite often, that a channel called Laowai86, he's now got to 1 million subscribers. Well done. There is China Uncensored, who got to 2 million subscribers. And what they did is ask. Now, I'm asking a big one, because I'm asking for something like 66% extra than my channel at the moment, standing at 34,000. And I would love to, by the end of this year, which is another, what we got, 3.5 months? Yeah, about 3.5 months, to get up to 100,000. I think when I get to there, I'm going to get more hits. If I get more hits, I'm going to get basically more money, so I can do a bit more travel rather than sitting in my lovely studio here. I can be out and about. But petrol costs, car costs, motorbike costs, etc. is all there. I'm not asking for anything related to super thanks, but if you are and you feel generous enough to, the link is always in the description. And with that, I will leave it. Thank you if you have got to the end of this rant and rave. I do have still a bit of a cold. And my cat is a lot better. He was just a bit sore when you saw him yesterday, and his face is like, and the eyes were like open. I can't do wide open eyes, but the eyes were open like that. Have a happy day wherever you are. Thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.